Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time and interest in Innisfil. I also want to thank council and staff for being here this evening, and of course our industrious IT team that keeps our meetings COVID appliant, but also allows us to be as open and accessible as possible. We have one item on the agenda tonight, or one purpose of tonight's meeting, so we'll get right to it because it's got a lot of interest and it's going to be quite a busy one. So I want to welcome everyone to the Special Council Public Planning Meeting. And please be advised that meeting will be audio and video recorded and shall form part of the record, which will be retained according to the town's retention bylaw. And for more information about that collection, please contact the clerk's office. Also, please remember, if you could mute your audio when you're not speaking, and also mute your cell phone when you are speaking, if that's possible. So the first item on the agenda would be to approve the agenda. And we did have one agenda repair item amended, as you see on the screen before you. So I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as amended. And I see Councillor Waters and Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That's carried. I would now ask if there's any disclosures of interest from members of council. Seeing none, if one occurs to you during the meeting, please just get my attention and we can record it at that time. So now the purpose of today's meeting is to inform council and the public and to obtain public input regarding proposed amendments to the secondary plan and the zoning bylaw amendments for lands known as Friday Harbour to modify and or delete policies related to the non-permanent occupancy of residential units, including removing restrictions on the maximum number of days that owners of resort rental units may occupy their units. I want you all to know there will be no decisions made this evening. First, we will hear from town staff and then the applicant. And after they have spoken, council may take a few questions or provide comment. Council, I will let you know that this evening we have over 30 registered, plus we probably might have more that might come on to either the phone or email through the meeting. So I would ask that during your time that you keep your questions succinct and save your comments or opinions till the matter comes back to us whenever it does come back, I think the end of September, early October. So we have the opportunity to allow those who wish for us to listen to them, that we give them the utmost attention and the amount of time possible. When we have the public consultations where members of the public who have pre-registered will be identified on the speakers list. And when it's your turn, I will ask you to turn on your video and audio, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to express your questions or concerns. Then town staff will respond to any questions where possible and note those questions and concerns for a report back. Should anyone need to speak for a second time to identify an issue that has not already been raised or to receive clarification, they may be provided an additional 5 minutes. But we'd like to have everybody have one turn first before we go back to the start again. Should any member of the public watching the live stream wish to make comments during the meeting, they can email or call clerk's office, where the deputy clerk will be monitoring for input and will provide your comments to council and town staff during the meeting. Any comments received will become part of the public record. If you do not submit your comments during this meeting, you can still send them in and they will be provided to council and town staff, and you will also be added to the circulation list as an interested party, where you will be kept updated on any future information regarding this item. The email and phone number will be listed on the PowerPoint during the meeting and is also available on tonight's agenda that can be found on our website. Now we will hear from the town clerk on how the public notice of this meeting was provided. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Worship. With respect to the proposed amendments to the Big Bay Point Resort Secondary Plan, OPA 17, and zoning bylaw number 029-05, notice for this public meeting was provided to all required agencies and was also mailed to all property owners within a distance of 120 meters of the area. Notice was also provided in the Innisfil Journal as well as the Shoreline, a publication emailed to members of the Friday Harbour Resort Association. In addition, signage was posted on the property and information was on the proposal was posted on the town's Get Involved Innisfil.ca website for review and commenting.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Has any correspondence been received by the Clerk's Department concerning the proposed amendments?
Yes, Your Worship, we've received a number of pieces of correspondence, and I'll just quickly summarize them here. The first item from Wendy Flowling, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong there, dated August 2nd, 2020, expressing support for the application. Second item from Anthony Sella, dated August 11th, 2020, supporting the application, but requesting that the traffic calming measures and widening of the paved shoulders be considered for pedestrian and cyclist safety on Big Bay Point Road. A third item from In Services, dated August 13th, 2020, requesting confirmation that the proposed removal of occupancy restrictions will not impact the sanitary sewer system and water supply distribution with Friday Harbour. The fourth item from the County of Simcoe, dated August 14th, 2020, stating that the county is working with town staff and the applicant to ensure that the lands maintain their primary use as a resort and that the proposed removal of occupancy restrictions in the official plan and zoning bylaw will not inadvertently impact growth management considerations for the town and county. The fifth item from Bob Dudley, dated August 15th, 2020, with questions to staff concerning the local planning implications for the proposed application. The sixth item from Lila and Michael Francavilla, dated August 17th, 2020, stating their opposition to the application. The seventh item from Tanya Phibbs, Secretary of Board of the Church Camp, dated August 17th, 2020, expressing opposition to the application. Andrea Skinner from Ayrton Burles, on behalf of Pratt Construction Limited, dated August 17th, 2020, requesting that the town confirm or obtain confirmation concerning land needs assessments, Innisfil's population numbers under the growth plan, and resort lands population numbers. And the last piece of correspondence from the Simcoe Muskoka Catholic District School Board, dated August 18th, 2020, requesting a notice to purchasers be included in all long-term rental lease agreements and expressing concerns about the board's ability to accommodate students from the resort. And Your Worship, we've also received at least 16 comments on the town's Get Involved Innisfil webpage with questions and comments about the application. And we also received a package of over 400 letters representing 660 individual owners within Friday Harbour, which was provided to council by the applicant supporting the proposed policy and zoning changes. And as well, Your Worship, just a reminder, for the members of the public may provide comment or register their interest regarding this application during the meeting or up until council makes a decision on the application by contacting the clerk's office.
Thank you, Mr. Parkin. We'll now hear from Mr. Stephen Montgomery, Senior Planner, who will provide a high-level summary of the planning context of the proposed amendments. And then we will hear from the applicant on behalf of the Big Bay Point Resort Association operating as the Friday Harbour Resort Association. So first up, Mr. Montgomery.
Your Worship, is my presentation showing on my screen? This is the first time I've done this.
It is.
Okay. Thanks. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council, staff, and the public. The purpose of this public meeting is to consider an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application for the subject lands located at 3999 Friday Drive, known as the Friday Harbour Resort. Shown on the screen is a 2018 aerial photo showing the subject lands outlined and hatched, which is the Marina District and Village portion of the resort for which the proposed official plan amendment and rezoning would apply. The applications were filed by Malone Given Parsons on behalf of the Big Bay Point Resort Association, operating as the Friday Harbour Resort Association, on behalf of the 5 condominium corporations at Friday Harbour, the existing resort unit owners, and the owners of the balance of resort lands. The purpose of the applications is to remove the occupancy restrictions for the resort residential units in Friday Harbour. Currently, owners can occupy these units for up to 300 days a year and only 185 days consecutively per year. The changes would redefine a resort residential unit as 4-season rather than non-permanent, and would allow owners to occupy the unit for 365 days a year. As a general overview, the proposed official plan amendment, summarized in the left column on the screen, would remove the non-permanent occupancy reference in the goals, objectives, principles, residential accommodation policies, implementation policies, and the general land use, resort residential land use policies of the current plan. It would delete references to requiring maximum length of occupancy in various agreements, such as condo declarations, subdivision agreements, and site plan agreements. And it would remove references to non-permanent occupancy and adding a reference to defining the resort units as 4 seasons within the terms and definitions. And again, on the other side is the general overview. The zoning bylaw amendment in the right column would change the term non-permanent resort residential units to 4-season resort residential units and remove reference to restricted occupancy. It would delete the definition of restricted occupancy resort residential units and remove a requirement to document non-permanent occupation of resort residential units in the phasing policy. The complete proposed changes to the official plan and zoning are in the attachments 2 and 3 to the staff report DSR 13420 this evening. These are basically a summary. So in support of these applications, the applicant provided a planning opinion report, a memo regarding economic benefits of the resort, a memorandum regarding the potential effects of the future land needs assessment by the county, and a legal opinion letter as well from Davies Howe. Planning staff have also requested an additional resort amenity report from the developer to identify whether sufficient resort amenities are in place to ensure the community continues to function as a resort if the occupancy restrictions were removed as proposed. The town is required to review several planning policy documents, all planning applications. These would include the town of Innisfil's community strategic plan, the provincial policy statement, provincial growth plan, the Lake Simcoe protection plan, the county of Simcoe official plan, and the town of Innisfil official plan. The staff report provides a basic overview of these policy documents. I won't go into them in detail in this presentation, but staff at the town and county are still reviewing the proposal in light of these documents, and this would inform any future recommendation to council in a future staff report. As stated previously, no decision will be made on the proposal this evening. So in terms of agency comments, the Simcoe County District School Board has concern about the lack of school sites in the area and pressure for accommodation if the occupancy restrictions are removed, and wants further discussion about potential impacts and potential strategies before any decision is made. Similarly, the Simcoe Municipal Catholic District School Board has similar concerns about a lack of school sites and wants existing clauses about accommodation and temporary facilities outside the neighborhood schools area given to purchasers to also go to any long-term rental lease agreements. Metrolinx has no comments. The County of Simcoe states they are considering ideas for supplemental policy in addition to the proposed policies or modifications to these policies to ensure that the resort nature of the development continues, and they're reviewing potential impacts on their growth management considerations. In services is also requiring confirmation from the engineer that removal of the occupancy restrictions will not impact the water and sewer system in any way. So various comments have also been received on getinvolved.ca and by email, such as do units pay full property tax and development charges and full development charges? What was the initial basis for approval of the occupancy restrictions? What are the impacts of traffic, servicing, emergency services, healthcare, libraries, and other services? What are the comments from agencies such as the Conservation Authority, the county, and the schools? Are there obligations to provide more low-income housing in or near the resort because of the proposed occupancy changes? Concerns about a lack of enforcement of the current occupancy restrictions? Concerns about the amount of amenities and whether more public access should be provided if it becomes a full-time community through the resort? The impacts of the occupancy restrictions on the developer, the unit owners, and other residents and taxpayers, and the costs and benefits, both of the removal. There's traffic concerns along Big Bay Point Road in terms of the provision of bike lanes, walking lanes, traffic calming measures. And also there are 400 letters of support received from the Resort Association members respecting the proposed changes. So in response, some of these questions are still being assessed and considered as part of the town's evaluation. As stated, there is no decision on this evening. In terms of property taxes, the owners of the resort residential units within Friday Harbour do currently pay full property taxes, and development charges were paid by the developer fully, just like a conventional subdivision for each unit of construction. Traffic and servicing studies were completed and assumed full occupancy for 365 days a year, and this is because the units can all be rented for the balance of the year that the owners cannot live in them. So 365-day-a-year living was factored into traffic and servicing. Matters to be explored further by the town and county staff before any decision is made include things such as policy conformity to the provincial, county, and town planning documents, growth management implications and implications on future land needs assessment by the county. A further resort amenity study is required to ensure the community continues as a resort with sufficient amenities if this were to be approved. The county and town are looking at options for additional measures to ensure continued resort function, such as policy measures or zoning standards, phasing policies. And the town and county are also looking at financial implications of these changes and the economic cost, benefit, and impact in surrounding community, such as infrastructure, amenities, and services. In terms of next steps, staff will review and consider all comments received on this application and report back to council at a future council meeting, recommending whether the proposed official plan amendment should be approved. Notice would be provided respecting within this report is returning to council for consideration to all those who requested notification and or submitted written correspondence for this public meeting, and that includes the Get Involved forum written correspondence. And lastly, if town council in a future council meeting adopts the official plan amendment and zoning, the county of Simcoe would subsequently have to final approve the official plan amendment before both takes effect. So any approval of this application would involve two levels of government, first Innisfil at the local level, and then afterwards the county level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Montgomery. Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate Stephen Montgomery's presentation. The very first slide, in the very first slide that he presented, it had 300 days, and he kept referring to 365 days. So I think there needs to be an adjustment on that first presentation page. We've got a conflict there.
Thank you for that. And we'll ask Mr. Montgomery or Ms. Nordstrom to comment on that.
For your work, the 300 days, I'll just start my video, sorry. The 300 days a year applies to what is currently in place. The 365 is what's proposed.
Thank you for that clarification. And Mr. Montgomery, you were a bit muffled. I think everybody did get it. Like if I couldn't read the comments beside it, I might have struggled a bit more, but just for future, maybe a little closer to the mic or turn up your volume a bit. I was going to interrupt you and say that, but we could all read the slides, so it wasn't an issue. So thank you so much for that presentation, Mr. Montgomery. And we'll now hear from the group, the applicant, and I'm not sure who's speaking. Ms. Shindrick, are you leading the charge?
I will indeed lead the charge, Your Worship. Can you just confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Madam Mayor, Mr. Deputy Mayor, members of council. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. And I want to say good evening as well to the staff and all the ladies and gentlemen that are joining us online for this public meeting. My name is Cheryl Shindrick. I'm Executive Vice President with Geranium, co-developer of Friday Harbour. I'm honored to be here this evening as part of the Friday Harbour team. For tonight's presentation, I am joined by the following members.
I apologize. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Ms. Shindrick. I just wanted to let whoever's got control of the screen that we're seeing the presenter view, which does have the speaking notes. So maybe we could just take a moment and adjust that so we just see the presenter view. My apologies for interrupting. Just
Thank you, Jason. No interruption at all.
If we just take, we're back. There we go.
I can probably get going on my part and let the very capable Lauren organize the presentation slides. So I am delighted to be here this evening, and I am joined by the following members of our team who will be speaking in the following order. Mr. James DiRenzo, President and CEO of Friday Harbour and President of Friday Harbour Resort Association. Mr. Don Given of Malone Given Parsons, who's leading our planning team. And Mr. Stephen Reese of FORAC, who's new to the Friday Harbour team, but who FORAC brings an international perspective on resort developments. And we felt it was appropriate to involve Mr. Reese in tonight's presentation, given the work that he's been doing. Initially, as a first step, he is helping us with the application that is before us all this evening. And as a secondary role, he'll be working alongside of us on a longer term amenity planning exercise. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge Mr. Jim DeGasperis, Managing Partner of Friday Harbour Resort Partners Group, Adam Forgione of Fengate, a major investor in the development, and Mario Giampetri representing the Geranium Group. These individuals, together with Mr. DiRenzo, have been instrumental in delivering the Friday Harbour as we know it today. Madam Mayor, I also want to thank you and members of council and town staff, led by Jason Rayner, for your continued support and acknowledgement of the importance of Friday Harbour to the town and the region, and to achieving your economic development objectives. We are grateful for the opportunity to be working alongside your team in making Innisfil the great place that it is. As has been noted, the applications that are the subject of this public meeting are to remove the occupancy restrictions that apply to the Friday Harbour residential units. They've been filed on behalf of the Resort Association, who represents 5 condominium corporations in Friday Harbour and their constituent unit owners. These are the people who have purchased units at Friday Harbour, who are property owners in the town and have been living with these restrictions for a number of years now. As you will recall, we had our first occupancies in 2017. As you will hear throughout our presentation, these occupancy restrictions are impeding the resort's success. They're impeding the unit owners' enjoyment of their property, and they're confusing and misunderstood by anyone who is introduced to them, not the least of which are the financial institutions who are being asked to provide mortgages on these properties. So I'd now like to call upon Mr. James DiRenzo, President of the Resort and the Resort Association, to explain the challenges with the occupancy restrictions from an operational perspective. Mr. Lorenzo.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. I don't know if anybody can see me yet.
Yes, we can see you and we can hear you, Mr. Dorenzo.
Wonderful. So good evening, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor Davidson, Town Council, town staff, members of the public, and certainly our Friday Harbor friends and families. It's an honor and a privilege to represent our 1,100 homeowners as in the Friday Harbor community, along with our partnership group, our many retailers, associates, and all of those in our community have come to rely on Friday Harbor to enhance their lives and well-being. As we all know, we're presenting tonight that the occupancy restriction has been a source of concern from homeowners almost from day one. I started back in 2016, and from that day forward, time and time again, we've had hundreds, if not thousands, of comments over the 4 years on how the occupancy restriction has negatively impacted their way of life at the resort, and also prospective buyers and financial institutions. So we as an association and an important part of Innisfil and Simcoe County from the start were committed to addressing the occupancy restriction as a group. And here we are today as a group presenting it to town and then subsequently to the county, again with more than 400 letters of support representing 660 property owners. But again, over the 4 years that we've been there, there's been many, many more. So with that, again, because the units can be occupied 365 days a year, we are asking council to reconsider our occupancy restriction this evening and to allow homeowners to freely use their units and enjoy their time and experience at Friday Harbor. And obviously, as you'll see later on, that the community at Friday Harbor goes beyond our own walls in the sense that we support the greater community of Innisfil and Simcoe, whether on our way up or over to Friday Harbor or on our way back. So again, we're a large community and we love Innisfil, we love Simcoe County, and we want to make sure that we can make the best use of it as we can. So with that, I'll...
Thank you, James. And now I'd call on Mr. Given to provide an overview of the policy and planning rationale for the removal of the occupancy restrictions.
Thank you very much, Cheryl, Mayor, and members of council. It's a pleasure. Stephen has already done an excellent job of summarizing what the restrictions are and some of the issues that we are being asked to deal with. And I think a lot of those were addressed through our planning report that has been filed, but I do want to highlight some of the main points. First of all, Stephen's notation about the 300 days and the 185 days are restrictions on an owner, but they're not restrictions on the amount of time that the use can be made of these units. The units can be occupied 365 days a year, not by the owner. And that's the hardship that we're trying to deal with. So what I'd like to do is run through a few slides quickly. I've been told that you have a large number of people in the waiting room, and I don't want to waste a lot of time. I'm here to listen to the public just like you are, so I can understand what the concerns are and ensure that we address them fully. But with respect to the capacity of the resort, everything as an engineer would want has been sized to the ultimate, so that you've got wastewater and water and stormwater and traffic and fire protection, all done anticipating full occupancy 365 days a year for every unit. So there cannot be an issue with respect to that. I just want to skip along if I can. The amendments, I don't think impact your land needs assessment. I know that has been a concern. You have some very ambitious plans elsewhere in the municipality to expand settlement areas. This is not a settlement area. And you can only grow a settlement area by attaching it to an existing settlement area. This is a resort area in a rural designation. It cannot become a settlement area. So I want to make sure that you understand that what is being proposed here is not to change it into a settlement area. It's proposed to further grow the resort functions that are already been planned and approved by your council. And to that extent, The concern that you heard from James is that there's an impediment now in the market to purchasing units that is created by, first, the bank's uncertainty about what these restrictions do, but there's also, it's impacting the opportunity to fully realize the growth potential of the resort. And you know, as a council, there are many financial benefits that are accrued to the council and to the town. And those are what we are worried about. We're worried that the full scale of the opportunity could not be realized without the restriction being removed. So very quickly, these unit owners, as you heard from Stephen, pay a full, property taxes. They have resort association fees over and above that they have to pay to cover the operating costs of the resort. Next one. These fees contribute to a lot of activities that are beneficial, not just to the resort, but to the general public. The public is welcome here. This is a very unusual opportunity on Lake Simcoe and in the county for the public to get to such a beautiful place has been built here since 2011 when it first started. It's extraordinary. It's unparalleled in the county. And it enjoys something that no other property has, and it has a resort act that was passed in 2010 that allows for the operation of this as a resort. And that was done very clearly to allow for the funding of all the different amenities and all the different operational costs that come with this property. Many of the amenities and many of the features that you associate with this resort were required by the phasing, not because of the restriction on occupancy. They're required by the planning that you approved. They're required by the conditions you put on approval. Everything that you did was to drive this forward in a positive direction like nobody else has ever done around this lake or in this county. I worked on Blue Mountain. I know what we went through for the village core there. I know that it wasn't planned. It sort of grew organically initially with Jozo Wider's dream. This is a very different dream on a water-based resource versus a mountain-based, but it is a four-season resort. Now the character and the functions are in place now. They're well established due to the phasing requirements. The occupancy restrictions, though, are a concern. And we'd like to have this full opportunity to listen to the public to understand why they think there might be an impact on them that would concern them. I know there are opportunities for change in terms of the way in which the plan will be implemented as time goes by. But the main thing that we're talking to you about is that this is a continued commitment by the owners to build a resort that will be unparalleled around the lake and unduplicated anyplace else in the county. Next slide. We just thought we should remind you of what has gone on. This is what the resort looked like in 2011. You can see the old marina. The extensive work that went on starting in 2011 and continues to today has created something that is very different, that you've all come to know as being something that may surprise others, that it's been built to this scale and with this quality, but it is working, and it's working successfully. You can go there with your family. You can do a lot of different things. The winter season doesn't close the opportunities down. The summer season is the peak, clearly, but that's expected. That was what drove the thinking for this. You could have a resort that had a summer season that was really strong and you could build on it. But it's a family opportunity. It's not just for a few people with a lot of money that want to buy a rich man's shack. That's not what we're talking about here. The golf course, championship golf course, the boardwalks allow you to get out and see the nature that's on this property. It's been preserved. They've won all kinds of rewards for this. The Audubon Society has recognized the golf course. The opportunity to showcase this has taken as far as Australia so that you could see how the environment has been protected, the water has been protected, and that's the representative from the Conservation Authority that's there with Shauna, who joined them in that tour. This is an active and charitable donation that was made by Friday Harbour to Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority and the Lake Simcoe Conservation Foundation. So there's a lot going on here. But to put this in perspective, Your own documentation that you prepared, looking at how you're going to deal with tourism, highlights the role of Friday Harbour as a special place, basically, that is intended to grow and attract a lot of interest in coming to your town, and to do so in a way that creates a new energy, creates a new income source, creates a varied opportunity for some of the existing businesses. The day trippers that come here either by boat or by car do spend money in your community. To date, just on the capital side of things, $850 million has been invested so far. By build out, it will be $2 billion. That's 8,800 man years of employment, 58 indirect years of employment, 3,500 years of induced or spin-off in jobs around the town. And as it continues, there will be direct investment in this area of significant proportions. We summarize these. I don't have to get into them. I think some of you know these before, but it's a huge commitment by the owners to continue with the vision that they had to create something special. The day trippers are interesting. They are becoming a key part of what is animating this area on a regular basis. They're coming for short stays. They're coming, they will be coming when the hotel is built. They're coming for conference space in the future. All of these things are being planned and will be delivered to you as has been promised. Some of the things that are already in place are listed there, but look at the activity that's going on here. Wintertime, summertime, Halloween. This is not just a summer opportunity. This is truly a four-season resort. The amendments that we're asking you for are minor. They just remove the restriction on occupancy in the secondary plan and then the bylaw. It's not a major amendment. There is no amendment required to the county's official plan. And these do conform with the provincial policy. They're consistent with it and conform with the growth plan and the Lake Simcoe protection plan. So from a planning point of view, we've addressed all of those concerns in policy form, and you have that document filed with you.
Thank you, Don, very much. Last but not least, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Stephen Reese of Forac Limited, who will provide an assessment of Friday Harbour and the Friday Harbour experience from a global perspective. I would note that Mr. Reese's report will be filed for public consumption following this evening's public meeting. In the meantime, we're looking forward to presenting Mr. Reese's thoughts on the application and Friday Harbour generally.
Your Worship, thank you for having me, and I know that we're running long, so I'm going to try and touch on the major points here, but I think it's important to understand that at this point, Friday Harbour has been open and operating for almost 5 years, and a lot has been accomplished. And when you start to look at what the other destination resorts and other major resorts in Ontario, how long it took them to get to, in some cases, the place where Friday Harbour is today, it took over 20 to 30 years. So there's a remarkable amount of progress that's been made here, I think in no small part from the support of the town of Innisfil and the county. So I'm not going to repeat all the things that Don said. He's the planner. I'm the resort planner and the so-called expert in amenities for these sorts of things. And where do we come from? Our company back in the 1970s was doing probably most of the resort planning in Muskoka and other parts of Ontario. And at that same time, we branched out into all kinds of leisure, including theme parks and resort destinations that include entertainment. And we, as you can see, the center of our portfolio is still resorts across the globe. And we still have those branches of additional work that we do that complements the resort. So the integrated resorts that you hear about on the world stage includes all that you see at Friday Harbour and some of the kinds of amenities that you see on these other kinds of work that we do. So when we start a project, we look at it from the guest expectation. It's the same thing we do when we assess a project. There's 6 or 7 pillars of let's say, principles that we make sure we've developed or that the client has in when we start in place, when we start to do an assessment. Everything from what's the big idea, what's the name, what's the character and the attributes of the resort that's going to make people get out of their chairs and drive for 2 or 3 hours or want to stay for days at a time if they have vacation time that they can afford to dedicate. And of course, with that comes all the kinds of amenities, the seasonal programs and events that we see here at Friday Harbour. Something very important to mention here is the role of the village, the commercial village or the boardwalk and the shops and restaurants and so on that are there. That's something we'll talk about in a minute. And of course, accommodation. When a guest is there, they should almost imagine that they understand that there's a vision to this place, that there's somebody had an idea, that they've been almost a slave to making sure it happens. And then in making it happen, there has to be people who know how to do that. And I think we already heard all the team members, including Professore De Gaspers and the vision that was developed for the resort, and of course, Dr. James Lorenzo in his know-how of how to make these things happen. And here's some of the summer scene activities that just reinforce the fact that this is a 4-season resort. Of note is the Boardwalk Village. There are really only two significant resorts in Ontario that have a commercial village like this, and it's Blue Mountain and Friday Harbour. Blue Mountain's been there for a little while now, goes back to JoJo's days, Intrawest, and now Blue Mountain Resorts are operating with their partners. Friday Harbour's only been out of the box for the last 4 to 5 years. So I would say by comparison, there's a lot to be said about what's been done and what's been achieved thus far at Friday Harbour. And that's a very important aspect of what brings people together. And we talk about the diversity of the guests who come here, the day trippers, as we call them, the overnight visitors who will be staying in hotels and renting from condo owners, and then the public who just come here, are welcome to come here to dine, walk the property, enjoy the nature, and of course the scenic splendor of being on a water body connected to Lake Simcoe. So it is a unique experience. Accommodation is an underpinning element of the success of a resort. If you only had day visitors, you're going to be a very different animal. Here we rely on accommodation in whichever form it comes, and a more diversified accommodation so that people who can afford now the time to participate in a resort lifestyle every day of their life, or at least for long periods of time, and those who may want to come and be just living vicariously in a resort lifestyle, we have to have that base for all of them. And without that, you won't have the diversity and mix of people and visitors, and therefore you won't have commercial operations and amenities that are sustainable, and it will challenge the future health of the resort. There's room to grow, and part of the amenities plan that we're talking about for the future reporting will be considering what that potential growth direction could be. So in our opinion, and I think it's no surprise to anybody listening, Friday Harbour is an unqualified check mark for being a resort. It looks, behaves, and entertains people and holds their interest the way any really good quality world-class resort would do. And there are a few things here that have put it over the top in terms of making it deliver on being a resort. But the next point is the implication of occupancy restrictions. A lot of people talk about the restricted owners, the owners being restricted, not being able to participate in a year-round resort lifestyle. But if you're also looking out to new owners and new visitors who want to be here, we're missing a group. Those who do have trouble getting financing for what they would like to invest in here, and those who are therefore looking elsewhere. So I think we're missing a segment of the ownership market. It is a resort. There's no question it's catering to people who want that lifestyle. And we think that the removal of the restriction will have very little impact on the ability for the resort to maintain its resort designation. I believe that what's starting now is a little video of a fly-through of what was recorded recently. So just to remind people who've been there and maybe show people who haven't been there what's at Friday Harbour today. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Madam Mayor, this is a very short video clip, if you will indulge us for one more minute, which captures the essence of Friday Harbour, the vision that you have helped us to deliver so far. So, Your Worship, that concludes our presentation, but I would be remiss if I did not make the point or point out when Don showed us the mud hole that existed on the site in 2012 and 2013, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the two individuals, Jim DeGasperis and Shauna Dudding, who practically single-handedly moved us from mud hole to what we see today on the ground. And so if I could just do that little bit of a shout out, I'm so grateful for your indulgence. So that concludes our presentation, and we are here now to hear comments and questions from council and from the public, and I will turn it back over to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Shindrock, Mr. Duranzio, Mr. Given, and Mr. Reese for that presentation. So next, we will ask that, do we have to pass the resolution, Patty, then to receive the presentations? Is that what happens next?
Thank you, Your Worship. Kevin will bring the PowerPoint back up momentarily, and that resolution will be on the screen. And if council wishes to ask any of the presenters questions at the moment while we're waiting on that, you can go ahead with that at the moment.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Patty, for the clarification. So I'll ask now if there's members of council questions for clarification. And if we could be as succinct as possible, because we've got many people waiting to talk to us and to tell us what they think, and this is their night. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a clarification in terms of maintaining the resort feel over the next 10 years or so. What is the schedule around the hotel? Because I think that would be a piece that would maintain a large visitorship, a daily visitorship, but also potential conferences, those types of things. So I'm just kind of curious, what is the status of the hotel, and when do they anticipate getting that piece built into the resort?
Ms. Shindrock.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you, or Councillor Waters, rather, through the Mayor, to you. We are working diligently on the hotel piece. It is front and foremost in our minds, and the whole investor group is working very hard to bring the hotel to the site. As you can appreciate, COVID has struck quite a blow to the hotel sector, and so it is making it much more challenging. But those discussions are ongoing, and the only one who wants, the only people more than council who wants to see a hotel there is our group. So it's a priority, and we are working as diligently as possible on it.
Thank you. Any other questions of clarification? Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Your Worship. Great presentation. I just maybe I have a pretty good idea what the reason why the 300-day rule was put in effect originally, but maybe could someone from your group just explain the thought process behind that originally being the 300 days once more for me?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Ices. Thank you for that question. The 300-day rule, as it has come to be known, which of course is much more intricate and complicated than that, was part of a suite of measures that were put in place when Friday Harbour was nothing but a vision on paper, to ensure that it would not develop as a conventional residential development. So Mr. Given referred to the phasing and the resort infrastructure that was put in place as phase 1. No resort residential units were built until phase 2. So as part of the first phase, the marina was reconstructed, the marina entrance was rebuilt, the Harbour Master building was delivered. There was a whole suite of items mentioned there. So as part of that suite of measures, occupancy restrictions were in the mix. And so we've now been living with those occupancy restrictions for a number of years. You'll hear from some of the residents, the unit owners who firsthand are experiencing them. And we are of the view that by removing those occupancy restrictions, the resort infrastructure is still there. It still hangs together as a resort. The resort association is a big part of that character of the resort and the way it functions today, which will continue to exist and function. And so because of the negatives associated with the occupancy restrictions and the positives, by removing them and allowing the resort to flourish, the banks will not be confused by the restrictions that are there. We're able to bring more people in as buyers. The current owners are able to enjoy their properties more freely, and the entire resort has been planned for 100% occupancy from a servicing point of view. So I hope that answers your question. It was a bit long-winded, but I hope that answers your question, Councillor Ices.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you, Worship. To Ms. Shindrick, thank you for the wonderful presentation by each of the presenters. So just clarifying in my mind, the 300-day rule, the occupancy restriction is that the units may be occupied for 365 days, but the homeowner may only live in it 300 days. However, they may rent their unit for the additional 65 days. Is that correct?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Orsatti, that is exactly correct.
Other questions of clarification? Councillor Fowler.
In the binder, there was a report from the Altus Group referring to the tax revenue. It's quoted as 17.9 million, 10.2 million going to the town of Innisfil, 4.9 million going to Simcoe County, and 2.8 to the educational purposes. Now, is this as the resort currently stands, or is this projected if the 300-day rule is removed and the growth is expected to proceed as normal?
I believe through your worship, I believe the memo assesses the property taxes that would be paid at build out. So you're quite right in that the property taxes are being paid at a full residential rate to the town, to the county, and to the school boards.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Fowler, follow up.
Yes, I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't clear. I'm with there, and the part of the reports we're reading is the growth is hindered by the 300-day rule. The 17.9 million in tax revenue, is that projected when you have the additional units built, or is that as it currently stands as the existing tax revenue provided to the town and the county and educational purposes? I apologize.
I believe that is the projected, Councillor Fowler. I will double check that. But the point being that the pace of sales is slower than what would otherwise be the case if we didn't have the occupancy restriction. So realizing those benefits, those property tax revenues will be slower than otherwise would be the case in our view.
Thank you. Any other questions of clarification? Councillor Payne. You're on mute, Councillor Payne.
You're not.
Oh,
Okay.
there, we got you now.
Thank you for the presentation, Cheryl. Nice to see you. I did have a question too, also about the 2.8% for education in the taxes, and with the residents paying for that, and there's not going to be a school there. Has there been anything brought up to the Simcoe County School Board to see when a school could be put in that area, to if there was a need for the residents, for the children?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Payne, we don't anticipate that the development is going to generate pupils. This is a resort lifestyle. And to date, of course, the people are not living there in a way that you would, buy a home in a conventional community and raise your family. This is a different place. And with the removal of the occupancy restrictions, we don't anticipate that that would change. There may be people who will choose to live here full time. We anticipate that that would be folks that are not in their child rearing years. It's not exactly conducive to raising families particularly. So we expect that this resort lifestyle would continue to generate the kind of population that is looking for a place to get away from their homes, and a place to come and play and recreate and spend time with family and friends away from it all. So that would be our sense of the way that we envision the school situation to unfold. That there would be no need for a school here.
Thank you. And if I could just add to that, Councillor Payne, that's an argument we hear from cottagers and have heard from cottagers over the years, that they're paying into school taxes and that they're also paying school taxes in their permanent residence. And, we have no control over that. That's those property tax issues are set by the province of Ontario. And that's the way it is currently in Ontario and all Ontario municipalities. Any other questions of clarification? Seeing none, we'll move to receive the two presentations that we've received so far. And I would ask for a mover and a seconder if we could receive those. I have Councillor Isis and Councillor Orsatti. All those in favor? That is carried. Now, you've been so patient waiting. So now it's time that we hear from the members of public who have had questions regarding the proposed amendment before council votes on receiving the report and all comments provided during this meeting. The speaking order is now on the screen. When it is your turn, if you will, you'll have 5 minutes to express your questions and or concerns, and town staff will be capturing all of your comments as we progress. Once your 5 minutes is up, please turn off your video and your audio, and I will call on the next speaker's name. Once all speakers on the list have spoken, I will ask for additional speakers, and at that time, please turn on your video only and raise your hand, and I'll call a speaker's name and ask that they turn on their audio when it's their turn for an additional 5 minutes. During the meeting, once you've provided your comment, you remain in the meeting if you wish, but please do not turn your audio or your video back on. You can also leave the meeting if you choose and watch us on live stream. I will now ask the first person, well, before I ask the first person on the list, I just wanted to make a couple of comments. So we have about 31, I think, names on the list tonight. So if everybody speaks for the 5 minutes allotted, that, my math tells us that gets us just shy of 3 hours. So if you wish to, it's not in my DNA to curtail conversation. This is an important conversation and we want to have it. But please, if somebody else has already said what you want to say, please just point to them and say, you know, I agree with them, and repeating something 17 times isn't going to make it any more relevant to us. So just asking if you'll please keep that in mind. And I'll ask for the first speaker, Shell Goldstein, please.
So I thanks for this opportunity. I'll be brief. How to do this? There we go. I'm a resident of Big Bay Point. I'm opposed to this fundamental change to the town's agreement with Friday Harbour. The intention was for the development of a resort, not a condominium complex. And from the presentations that we've just listened to, they gave us all this great information of what a great resort it is and how important a resort is to Innisfil.
Miss Goldstein, I think we lost your feed.
Yeah, sorry, I have a limited bandwidth here. If everyone else would turn off their cameras and voice, that would help. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes.
So I've just heard all these great presentations proving or pushing for a resort and talking about that most people that want to be owners at Friday Harbour, in point of fact, want it as was the original concept, and being sold to them a condominium cottage. It's a cottage. Who needs to live at their cottage for more than 300 days of the year? It's a cottage. It's a resort. You're talking about the day trippers. You're talking about people coming and using it. You're not talking about residents. One of the points I wanted to make was that if it does change to the 365 days, that all owners would be responsible for full residency tax. I hear that that's already the case. So my other thought was that no owner gets to opt out of that. All owners would then be total residents. One of the things I'm noticing, and I don't know if this is part of the current tax situation, is that as a community, a resort, you share the amount, you have common grounds, you are all waterfront properties. So I think any condominium, any unit at Friday Harbour should be taxed as a waterfront property. So what I have heard and learned clearly, that the drive for this change is about the banks. It's about financing. You want to sell more units. Great, I'm in favor of that as a resort. If there be some other way to deal with this, you're already 5 years in, you must be able to prove to the banks and credit unions that Friday Harbour is a stable investment. You don't need to change it to 365 days. I yield my time. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Goldstein. Next on the list, and I don't have a copy of the list, Patty, sorry. Can you, can I deputize you to yell out who's next on the list?
My apologies, Your Worship. Technical difficulties. It would be Stephanie Smith.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right, can we go to the next speaker? If we can't find it, Stephanie, if you're on there and you're having trouble finding your mute button, we'll come back to you. Next, Madam Clerk.
Would be Darren Lynn.
Darren.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, my general concern, speaking to a number of owners at Friday Harbour, was really in regards to the difficulty obtaining financing. For me, myself, as an owner on a Friday, I did have some trouble obtaining that. but I recognize that it was very well sort of represented, this issue, through the presentations. And I just, do want to really solidify that point that, with this ongoing 300-day restriction, it really poses the problems for new owners who are trying to obtain a mortgage, where the banks really, because of the uncertainty of this 300-day rule, they really are not allowing finances to happen. So thank you very much. I'm just keeping it short, but I noticed that it's already been presented in the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Next up, there we go. Next is Stephanie Smith back. Seeing none, then Dion Malcolm. Dion Malcolm. Okay, we'll put Stephanie and Dion on the side in case, and we'll come back to them. Lisa Ma. Lisa Ma. All right, Jeff Van Duvenhaven. I guess it's a lovely night out tonight, so nobody wanted to sit in front of a computer. Jeff Van Duvenhaven. Mike Fronte. Megan Varga.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, Megan.
Hello. So thank you, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and Council, for allowing me 5 minutes of your time. I would like to start out by saying that out of principle, I am against the proposed change to the fractional ownership at Friday Harbour. Promises were made to get the original development approved, promises and concessions. I believe the final staff report should include what the original agreement was with Friday Harbour, not just the changes after the original approval, so that all parties have all the necessary information to make an educated decision. Without the history and the intent of the development, it's hard to be in favor of requesting a change. In relation to the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, it is terrifying to think that a development of this magnitude that changed Lake Simcoe so dramatically isn't applicable because it's grandparented in. It literally changed the size of the lake, the watershed, and the volume of watercraft on it. Seeing as there's already been an increase in the number of units, etc., I would hope that the town would at least go through the motions to ensure this change does not have any further negative effect on Lake Simcoe. I caution town and council to please do more than just your due diligence because there is no safety net. Barring the appeal process, once this change is made, there is no going back. The school board comments are quite discouraging as well. And we have to assume that there will be some children living there, since no one that currently lives at Friday Harbour is supposed to be registered in a local school, and the school board has outlined the lack of capacity at this point. How can you all in good conscience approve this change? Really, when you read over all the submitted documents, there's an answer for most capacity questions, except when it comes to schools. If this goes to a 365 occupancy, where are the children going to go, and how will buses navigate the narrow streets? Considering there is an increase in traffic since the inception of Friday Harbour, both motorized and not, it is irresponsible, in my opinion, for council to not implement some sort of multi-use path or trail along the entire stretch of Big Bay Point Road, as well as the 13th line as soon as possible. If this changes to a 365 ownership, there will be more children around and the situation is only going to get worse. And in conclusion, I'd like to close with 3 questions. I'm just wondering, would the town and county have passed the development if it was initially marketed as a 365 occupancy? Would the Conservation Authority have approved this development initially with a 365 occupancy? And I'm wondering if the public would be provided with the initial agreement between the town and Friday Harbour. And I thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Megan. And those questions will go to the planning staff and they'll be addressed in the report that comes forward to us. So next on the list was Larry Gasner. All right, next was Anna D'Alessandro. I'm not seeing. Oh, yeah. Anna, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of council. I'd like to discuss this evening, as a homeowner at Friday Harbour, some of the reasons that we feel so strongly that the 300-day rule needs to be removed. As the project was approved back in 2012, 2013, and developed, it was always developed with occupancy of 365 days. The only people who are being impacted right now are the homeowners, because our units, as a unit owner, I can still occupy my unit, or my unit can still be occupied for the full 365 days. I'm the only one as the owner that cannot occupy it for that period of time. So in terms of any impact on transportation or any impact on water, sewers, and whatever else that may be of concerns to the local cottagers and homeowners in the Big Bay Point area, that doesn't change. There's no additional impact provided by having, or no additional impact provided by having a 365-day occupancy, because all of those components have been taken into account in the original approval. With respect to taxes, I'm paying full taxes like every other cottager in the area, only I'm not allowed to occupy, and cottages are not restricted from occupancy. So I'm asking that you consider removing it, because the impact to homeowners and the lack of ability to get financing for our units is dire. It's to the point where my value, the value of my unit does not increase to the point where it should, because the number of people who can get financing for the unit, they have to be wealthy, or because financing is very, very difficult. So that's my position, and I hope you take that into consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. D'Alessandro. Next on the list is Peter Gregorian and Liliana Godina. Is Mr. Gregorian on the call? I'm afraid I might have scared a whole bunch of people off when I told them there were 31 names, and they might have all given up. Either that, or during the presentation, their questions or concerns were answered. Who knows? Next is Michael Wolf. And next after Michael Wolf is Jamie Wakeham.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. Hopefully you guys can hear me.
Yes.
Great. Thank you for the time. I'll make this quick. I am in favor for making this change, and I support the comments that both Darren and Anna mentioned. My very quick question for council is there another way that we could ensure Friday Harbour remains a resort as it was originally intended without this requirement for non-permanent occupancy restrictions? Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. And that question will be addressed during the staff report that comes forward. Thank you, Mr. Wakeham. Next on the list, I'm making the clerks work hard tonight, is Nick Athanasio. I am sorry if I'm butchering everybody's names. Nick, are you on the call? Seeing none, next is Michelle Simpson.
Hi there, thank you for listening to what I have to say today. I'm just concerned. I'm not really I'm not for or against it at this point. I'm just concerned about the overcrowding of schools. I know that was already mentioned, as well as if everyone is going to be there 365 days, are there going to be other things built like medical requirements, community centers, or anything else that's might be needed having, if everyone is to be 365 days there, that's going to have a big impact, you know, with doctors and all that sort of stuff, where we're already at the limit with everything. And that's everything for today.
Thank you so much for those comments, Michelle. Next on the list, Jennifer Kemmel.
Hi there, good evening. It's Jennifer Kemmel.
Thank you.
So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about the removal of the occupancy restrictions, which I wholeheartedly support. So removing this rule will allow my family and others to enjoy our substantial investment without added restrictions. Like everyone else in this province, we've already been subject to unforeseen restrictions that have affected my ability to make use of the unit that I have recently been in possession of, as well as some of the resort amenities. So, and like all of you, the restrictions have affected how we move and interact with one another and engage in community and recreational activities, and have led to many tough decisions and choices given the economic downturn. So I understand the public health restrictions because they are for the greater good to protect us all from getting sick. I don't understand, nor is there a good rationale that has been provided to me regarding the restrictions on me for using my unit as an owner within the Friday Harbour Four-Season Resort. Removal of this rule will help to realize the full investment that I have in my unit, as well as assist in enabling reasonable mortgage financing for the investment, something that is getting increasingly difficult as we manage life and finances during a pandemic. So as you've heard, this rule is negatively affecting homeowners within the resort and potential future homeowners as well. This rule is affecting property values, which ultimately affects the amount of property taxes collected by the town. I add my voice to those participating today, as well as the 600 people that have already submitted their letters to the town, and for those that could not participate because of the good weather outside, likely. And I just wanted to thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Kamai. I understand that Nick Athanasio is here. Or not. So next on the list is Pauline Niles.
Good evening, Mayor Dolan.
Good evening,
Hello.
Pauline. We can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Okay, I'll just take a couple of minutes to get, okay, sorry. Good evening, Mayor Dolan, Deputy Mayor Davidson, council members, staff, and members of the public. My name is Pauline Niles of 3740 Mangusta Court, Innisfil. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on amending the occupancy restrictions at Friday Harbour. Many refer to these as the occupancy restriction 300 days rule. I have received numerous emails from Friday Harbour homeowners to speak on their behalf in support of removing the occupancy restrictions at Friday Harbour Resort. Innisfil is the home of a world-class resort. Our community is diverse and it offers leisure, entertainment, events, and a tranquil place for homeowners and Innisfil community at large to enjoy at no cost to the public. This is made possible through the Resort Association members' annual resort fees. These fees are also used to maintain the RA roads, garbage removal, maintenance of the nature preserve, entertainments, events, to name a few. In addition to the RA fees, Homeowners also pay condo fees for condo road maintenance, garbage and snow removal, as all roads within the resort, except for Friday drives, are privately owned by the Resort Association and the Condo Board. The Resort Association and the Condo Corporation also have a reserve fund to address future infrastructure replacement and repairs. This is a significant cost saving to the town of Innisfil and Simcoe County, as these services are not provided to us as part of our property tax. A notable difference between Friday Harbour residents and other residents of Innisfil, it must be noted, Friday Harbour homeowners do not receive preferential property tax treatment because of reduced services. As the homeowner representative on the Resort Association board, I've had an opportunity to speak with hundreds of homeowners, and a great majority of uses Friday Harbour as a family cottage or seasonal home. We are largely a self-sufficient community, which has not placed an increased financial burden on Simcoe County or the town of Innisfil. However, due to occupancy restriction placed on our homeowners, in addition to paying regular market value property tax for their home, Resort Association fee to maintain the beautiful property, plus condominium fees, an additional financial burden over and above Innisfil residents is placed upon them annually, as they must find alternative accommodation for 65 days of the year. Friday Harbour is a cohesive, safe, prosperous, happy place. It provides a high quality of life for everyone that owns and visits the resort. Our values promote an open culture where neighbors take pride in their living environment, respecting and supporting one another regardless of age, gender, race, or creed. Additionally, the activities and growth of Friday Harbour add economic value for the town as more businesses are attracted to the area. The resort provides many stable long-term employment opportunities for local residents, ensuring the viability and the vitality of the community for the future. The town is also able to enjoy the prestige of hosting a world-class resort within its borders, with the potential of attracting future tourism funding and other tourism-based economic investment. The current occupancy restrictions are a significant obstacle to the success of Friday Harbour and detrimental to delivering economic benefits to Innisfil and Simcoe County. The current rule does not prohibit the unit from being occupied 365 days. It just prohibits the unit owner from enjoying her unit freely over 365 days. Friday Harbour has been planned for full occupancy. Therefore, approving this application is in order, as the number of people at a fully occupied resort was already taken into consideration. Friday Harbour residents have and will continue to support many initiatives within Innisfil. The removal of the occupancy restriction will promote future sales, generating additional revenue for Innisfil and the local economy. Friday Harbour homeowners, thank you in advance of a favorable decision. Thank you for the time, Mayor Dollin and members of the council and staff, for a great report.
Thank you, Pauline, for your comments. Next on the list is Dennis Pedersen. Dennis Pedersen. Catherine Grammatikos. Jane King.
Hi, I'm here. Thank you. I just wanted to add a couple of comments. I've We've had occupancy of our unit since January 2018, and I'm president of one of the condo corporations. Just as a clarifying point to some of the points other people have made, is the one thing as we reside very much in this community, and we bought this as a retirement dwelling, and we are also a business owner in the Barrie area. I want to just ensure people understand that not every unit is a waterfront unit with the condos, as a comment was made earlier. And we are taxed significantly compared to other property owners on Lake Simcoe. With that being said, there is a significant generation of tax funds that's going into Innisfil without, and it's a perception, without it being any much of a drain on the town of Innisfil. As is been mentioned, we're very much a self-sufficient community in that regards to our road maintenance, our garbage removal, and other components to that. Another point that I want to clarify too is the concerns over the schools. I am a retired educator, and I see what the cross section of our community is with people that already have occupancy. This place is used as a perception of a cottage seasonal weekend resort, but the other people who are more so in the townhomes and in the marina towns of where I live, these are people that are of a retirement age. So I don't see this concern over the schools as being a valid concern, as there's such a high level of occupancy already. And even with that, as we're not to be occupied for 365 days with the current rule, there would be nothing currently, in my opinion, that would be stopping a family to come here. But as to the point that's made earlier, it's not a community where you would raise a family. It is an amazing resort community, and it's catering to families on weekends as a secondary home or cottage as perceived. But I think it's to my point being is, the residency right now on the waterfront is more of, I don't think it's the dynamic that people are perceiving it where, as mentioned. And I just want to clarify another point too is, I would hope that the town of Innisfil does take a look at the accessibility to our resort, with the roads being very narrow and providing more bike paths and sidewalks. But again, I am very much in support of the points being made to remove the rule as it stands, because the number of people that want to invest and come into this resort community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King. Next on the list is Carolyn Molyneux.
Your Worship, it's Catherine Broussard on behalf of both of us. I'll speak on behalf of our residents. Thank you, Your Worship, Town Council, citizens of Innisfil, Friday Harbour homeowners, and the Friday Harbour management team. I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask a question and make a comment about both Friday Harbour and Innisfil. We have always dreamed about living and retiring in a small town community on the water where we could enjoy fine dining and an amazing variety of restaurants. We could golf, swim, boat, hike, and be part of a community that is accepting regardless of race, religion, and ethnicity. We found this in Innisfil. Innisfil has a small town feel with amazing opportunities. Friday Harbour is part of these opportunities. Opportunities to grow the community while maintaining a small town feel where people could enjoy the environment through walking trails, boating, fishing, biking, golfing, and nature preserves. As a homeowner and hundreds of others here, I look forward to the opportunity to contribute to the town of Innisfil by being able to reside here year-round. My question is, right now, we know the 300-day rule has resulted in short-term Airbnb rentals, which have become problematic in a number of ways, including large parties that have required police presence, leading to unnecessary costs to the town. Would allowing this rule to be full year residency reduce unnecessary expenditures to the town as a result of the opportunity to either live in the residence full-time or rent the residence for longer periods of time. I believe if the town affords the opportunity to make a change, I have a comment for Friday Harbour. If the town of Innisfil is willing to make a change to the 300-day rule and allow 365-day full year residency, Friday Harbour must uphold its commitment to the community and build the hotels they committed to, build the community center or conference center that they committed to, and an activity park that's owned by a property adjacent to Friday Harbour. I believe if Innisfil is going to make this commitment, Friday Harbour must uphold their commitments on their end. And that's all I have. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much, Ms. Broussard. Next on the list is Chris Garapi. Mr. Garapi, are you on? I don't see him, so we'll go to Wendy Reitzma. Wendy? Connie Positano? Connie Positano? Owen Kennedy? Owen Kennedy? Bob Dudley?
Hi, this is Bob Dudley, and I'm a resident of Big Bay Point. I live on West Street.
Go ahead, Mr. Dudley.
I'm starting my video. And some of you know me, including some of the Friday Harbour folks. And from the beginning, I have supported Friday Harbour on the resort. And I still do, but I got to say it's not unconditional support. We've heard from Friday Harbour, and we've heard, really from 600 residents who support this change, and but it's in their vested interest. It's a financial investment. They want to increase their financial investment, and they aren't considering what the impacts are to local residents. And, I probably don't expect them to either. But what I do hope is that the council is looking at what is in the best interest of all of the residents, not just Friday Harbour, but also the Big Bay Point residents and all of the other Innisfil residents. And a lot of my concerns have been addressed already. Some of them have been answered, but the main concern I've got going forward is what are the unintended consequences of saying this is now a year-round residence? I'm not familiar with planning guidelines or OMB. I'm not sure how planners and OMB are going to view this in the future. Are they going to look at it and say, well, we just got 3,000 more residents, so now we qualify for low-income housing? Does it infer we need a strip mall, a gas station? Somebody already mentioned medical facilities. So these are all the things that I think have to be considered. Somebody needs to be looking at what are the consequences of making the decision, and it needs to be done on behalf not just of Friday Harbour, but all of Big Bay Point residents and all of Innisfil. And I'm looking, to council to do that due diligence. So those are my comments. Hopefully it's going to be, looked at in a complete global view and not just, looking at a great presentation that's being put on by Friday Harbour, who I've supported in the past and I still do. But, I think we got to look at it from the bigger picture. So thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Dudley, for being here and for being patient.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, we are almost at the end of the list. Christine May. Christine May. Oh boy, Joe Ugolini. And Marla Trabs. So now, as opposed to going through the lists over and over, I'm just going to ask, is there anybody who is on the Zoom call that has not had the opportunity to speak? I will ask one more time. Is there anybody who has not had the opportunity to speak? Hearing none, is there anyone who has had the opportunity to speak but feels that they have something else they'd like to add? If you could turn your video on.
Mayor Dolan, it's Pauline Niles.
Yes, go ahead, Pauline.
Some concerns were raised about a number of things with Airbnb. I would like to emphasize that Friday Harbour also have a very robust security system with cameras throughout the resort, but we also have private security that is at the resort 24/7 to support all the security needs that is needed at the resort.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Ms. Goldstein.
Hi. Pauline's needs to be muted, I think. Or
you know what it is? I think, Ms. Goldstein, if you turn off your video, I think that'll give you better bandwidth, then we'll hear you better. It works for me. Okay, now try and we'll see if that's better.
Let's try that again. Where did my thing go? Okay. In response to what where did keeps going here? Hold on, tech difficulty. Let me adjust this. And yes, and yes. So in response to a couple of things that have been said, Friday Harbour should be upholding whatever its initial commitments are, regardless of whether there's any change with the occupancy amendment. This is not a negotiation of that. Those things are still in place. And the Airbnb problem is not going to be solved at all by the amendment. From listening, it doesn't seem to me that there's really all that many people wanting to actually reside at Friday Harbour year long. I hear some people wanting to retire and have that as their one and only residence. Maybe there's a way to accommodate that. What I haven't heard anything about is that there's also 185, I don't know if I have the number right, consecutive days that I would be happy to see increased or not be concerned at all. But the 300 days, it acts as a way to ensure that it's a resort. What I hear from Friday Harbour is that they want it to be a resort, not to be a residential area. And what I do hear is that they want to sell more units and that the people that have already bought there want their finances. So there's a financing issue, and I would deeply have you please look and see if there's another way that you can solve the financial issue without giving up Friday Harbour being a resort. You want it to be a resort. I don't know, I'm repeating myself here, I don't know that there's really all that many people that want to live there year round. You're talking about a banking issue, not an issue to deal with living in Innisfil. And something else in terms of potential new owners or the owners that have bought in, that the rules have been there if you read them and understood them and disagreed, then this was not the place to buy. And whether you were just expecting that eventually you'll talk the town of Innisfil into, you know, getting rid of it, that feels a little off, and I'm sorry about that. And yes, it's a great place to live, but maybe Friday Harbour, I don't know, but there, to me, there needs to be something else going on here. The financing needs to be sorted out, and keep it as a resort, and maybe build in some way around it, or for the people that want to retire there, maybe going somewhere else for 65 other days of the year. That doesn't have to be consecutive. Take a couple of vacations, visit somebody else. I mean, the 300 rule seems workable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Goldstein. Is there anyone else who would like another opportunity to speak? I will ask one more time. Is there any member of the public who's on the Zoom call that would like another opportunity? Hearing or seeing none, I would ask the clerk, is there any emails been received by the clerk's office during this meeting?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, we did receive 2 emails. One from Leila Franca. She asks the question, how do we prevent this resort from becoming a retirement community? We heard the comment about it not being for people in childbearing years. What happens when families start to occupy these units? If no schools will be built. Thank you from Leila Francavilla. And one more email was from one of the people who was registered but couldn't get on the live stream tonight. So it's from Nick Athanasiou. And his comment is he would like the 300-day rule to be removed, as it has significantly affected the value of his property, especially in these undeterminable times. He would love to move into the premises with his child in the near future without having this rule always in the back of his mind. And that's it for our email comments. And I heard from Ms. Toma that there's no phone call comments at all.
Thank you. So no phone calls. So thank you to everyone who's taken the time to provide input regarding the proposed amendment. I know it's not as easy as just showing up at the council chambers, and appreciate everybody working with us on this Zoom environment. We'll now go to the recommendation. I'd ask for a mover and a seconder that council, and then ask council if there's any further comments or questions. So we have the report to receive the comments that were presented this evening. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Fowler and Councillor Payne. Any further questions or comments on the presentation? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. If you have not made oral or written submissions in regards to this proposal before a decision is reached, you should be aware that the local planning appeal tribunal may dismiss your appeal. Anyone who wishes to provide comment may do so, and may also register as an interested party to be contacted before this application is further considered by council. Please contact the clerk's office, and it's clerksoffice@innisfil.ca. And council thanks everyone for your time this evening, and that is the end of our public meeting. So now we will confirm have the confirmatory bylaw in order to confirm events this evening and recommendations, and that's moved by Councillor Orsatti and seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That is carried. And adjournment, that would be Councillor Nicol and Councillor Fowler. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Rayner.
Thanks very much, Your Worship and members of council. Just wanted to clarify that we are making every effort at the applicant's request to try to have a report in front of council at your regular meeting on September 9th. There are still, as you heard from planning, a few outstanding matters to address, and so we're working as fast and as hard with the applicant to get that done. But just wanted to help manage expectations that's the target. It may not be possible, but that's the target. I know there's a number of people on the call today that are interested, so just wanted to share that, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner. And that means then if you get off this call tonight and you're sleeping on it and something else comes up that you want to advise us on, please send your emails in over the next week or so, so that they can all be part of the document that's coming forward. All right, hearing or seeing nothing else, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thanks again, everybody, for your participation. Very much appreciated. And enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm pleasantly surprised. I thought we were going to be out of here at midnight.
Thank you, Your Worship, on behalf of all of us.
Thank you, Cheryl. Good night, everyone.
Good night, all.